In America alone, there are over 3,500 self-proclaimed neo-Nazis today, and well over 70,000 worldwide. Currently, there are 15 American Party members who are self-proclaimed neo-Nazis. The largest organization of neo-Nazis in America is called the National Socialist Movement, the NSM, and has about 400 members across 32 states. In 2020, the Federal Bureau of Investigation reclassified neo-Nazis to the same level of threat as ISIS. Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, stated, "Not only is the terror threat diverse, but it's unrelenting." According to Fortune News, the radical right in the US makes up 6% of the country's population. People who support the radical right in many cases also support the ideology of Nazis, which makes the number of neo-Nazis in America actually much larger than it appears. In many cases, people will not admit to being Nazi supporters, but their ideals are similar and should be considered part of the group. In this presentation, we will be discussing American neo-Nazism, as well as modern anti-Semitism and its ties to white supremacy in the United States. Our first question will be why people support neo-Nazis in America, followed up by who the major groups are, and finishing with the impact of these groups, and if the rest of the world is in danger due to these organizations. When referring to neo-Nazis in America, let's first lay down some basic facts. Neo-Nazis is a term coined after the Second World War that borrows elements from Nazi ideology such as anti-Semitism, ultranationalism, racism, xenophobia, ableism, homophobia, and anti-communism, as well as the concept of creating a Fourth Reich. Side note, many neo-Nazis were also Holocaust deniers and try to convince people that it never actually happened. The word neo means new, and in other words, this hate group is the new Nazis. In America, neo-Nazis are closely related to white supremacists and right-wing extremists who often run for power in the government to try to push their ideas and opinions onto new groups. These people believe that America should be a place for white Christian people, and they should be in complete power. Now that we have a general idea of what a neo-Nazi is, let's figure out why people still support them in a country so advanced like America. A YouTube channel called AJ Plus created a short documentary-style film on what kind of people get recruited and why. So let's do a character profile. Let's start off with the basics. Obviously, to be a part of the Nazi group, you'd have to most likely be a white, preferably Christian person. Recruiters often go for young children as they are easily manipulated into their ideas. They look for kids who are growing up in non-ideal environments, such as growing up in poverty or with abusive parents. These people are more easily convinced of a better reality by joining the neo-Nazi movement. In Portland, we get a close look at Jason Downard, who is a recruiter for neo-Nazi movements. He goes to local populated areas and tries to find kids who seem to be alone and gives them pieces of white power and neo-Nazi literature, as well as music, white power music specifically. So we can see that white power and neo-Nazism are effectively in the same boat when it comes to the recruitment process for young individuals. Now let's look at Shannon Foley Martinez, a former neo-Nazi. She explains that the reason she became a neo-Nazi at a very young age was her insecurities as a teenager, and that's what led her to extremism. Shannon states that she progressed slowly into neo-Nazism. As a child, she joined an anti-Vietnamese group. She states that she was always a person susceptible to influence, so that could be added to the list of traits that many neo-Nazis retain, as well as the fact that many neo-Nazis were drawn to extremism due to a traumatic event that they experienced. In this case, sadly, Shannon is no different. Shannon was sexually assaulted as a teenager, and between the ages of 15 and 20, she became a neo-Nazi. She believed that becoming a neo-Nazi would allow her to vent out her anger from her past traumas, as well as giving her a sense of identity. Decades later, in an interview, she states that she discovered neo-Nazism wasn't the self-image she had in mind for herself. As well as being drawn into neo-Nazi or skinhead movements, many people support Nazism indirectly. People who take part in the radical right of the United States or believe that white people are superior indirectly support neo-Nazism. There are many cases of people who don't directly call themselves neo-Nazis, but in fact go to rallies set up by parties like the NSM. So why do people support neo-Nazis today? Firstly, there are damaged people who think that the extremist group will take them in and give them an identity. Or they are white supremacists who seek more power and see that in neo-Nazism.
The ideologies of neo-Nazism drive people to hate others they often know little or nothing about. Many groups exist to help further the purpose of this terrible worldview. The biggest neo-Nazi group operating in the United States is the National Socialist Movement. This group is a white supremacist and neo-Nazi organization founded in the 1970s. The group promotes hateful, discriminatory beliefs and has a history of violence and terrorism. Following many of the beliefs of World War II-era Germany, spreading messages of anti-Semitism and Aryan superiority is one of the NSM's main objectives. The National Socialist Movement often holds public rallies and demonstrations, where their hateful messages are distributed to the masses and occasionally become violent. In addition to their public presence, the group also has a significant online presence, where they circulate their ideologies and recruit new members. Of course, the National Socialist Movement is not alone in its hateful ideology. Other major neo-Nazi groups operating in the U.S. include the Ku Klux Klan and the Atomwaffen Division. The Ku Klux Klan, also known as the KKK, is a white supremacist hate group that was founded in the United States in the late 1800s. The group has a long history of violence against African American, Jews, and other minority groups. Their members can be found wearing their large, white, masked, conical hats and white robes in their demonstrations. The KKK has undergone several revivals throughout its history, with each incarnation bringing a new ideology of hate. Its legacy of hate continues in the United States to this day.
It open, point it at them, and pull the trigger. The only right they deserve is the right of lead. Hail Hitler.
A series of sinister online videos produced by the Atomwaffen Division.
The Atomwaffen Division is a violent neo-Nazi group that was founded in 2015. The group promotes a violent, apocalyptic ideology and has been linked to several murders and other violent crimes. The Atomwaffen Division has a small but dedicated following, and it has been described as one of the most dangerous neo-Nazi groups in the United States. The Atomwaffen is considered one of the more dangerous neo-Nazi groups due to their affinity for outright violence, in contrast to other groups who tend to use more conventional ways to present themselves to legitimize their beliefs. Neo-Nazism, like any other hateful ideology, has been shown to be dangerous many times, whether through violent demonstrations or the spread of hateful messages. Dangerous to not only those who may be targeted, but also to those who try to oppose it. Nazism and its tenets exist on the far upper right of the political spectrum, at a position known as the authoritarian far right. The ideologies of authoritarianism commonly include totalitarianism, strong submission to authority, and an ethno-state. The totalitarian state that neo-Nazis would seek to create would violently destroy anything that stands in their path to their nation of white Christians. A very important thing to note, however, is that many groups stop short of acting on their ideology of carrying out extreme violence because their members see nonviolent activism as more effective. The neo-Nazi collective has developed a shared culture of radical opposition to mainstream society, with dreams of a revolution in the name of the Aryan race. Exchanging a wide variety of ideas with each other, they inspire one another with their activism. Websites, message boards, and public organizations all create ways for these people to weave networks with each other. One such website says, "The rest of the world is collapsing beneath us all as we speak. The system is beginning to suffer the consequences of its corruption. The failure of democracy and capitalism has given way to the Jewish oligarchies and the globalist bankers, resulting in the cultural and racial displacement of the white race. There is nothing that can be fixed in a system so inherently flawed. National socialism is the only solution to reclaim dominion over what belongs to us. The West cannot be saved, but it can be rebuilt and even stronger without the burdens of the past. Their world, free of what they think is the tyranny of the Jews, is so deeply steeped in a tea of a perceived higher purpose." Below all their strange, hectic madness, however, there is a rationale. Their activism builds the movement's call to a revolution based on Nazi ideals, and gives reason to their belief that our society is flawed, corrupt, and needs to be fixed. From this, they have a deeper sense of meaning and purpose to fix the world. How are they dangerous? Neo-Nazis promote and advocate hateful and violent ideologies, using propaganda and violence to spread their message and intimidate those that don't agree with them. While they often project into the future a vision of a violent revolution and revel in their conspiracies, what is most notable is that usually they will not cross into actual widespread violence. Operating on the fringes of legality, modern Nazis would rather run camps and events than step into the role of terrorist revolutionaries. While their actions may be offensive, even criminal, they will rarely become violent and are designed to gain public attention. Although they may turn their ideals into actions in nonviolent ways, neo-Nazis always pose an ongoing risk of physical violence. Such a deep hate for people has ways of manifesting itself.
Here today, on behalf of the white race here in America, we've got a little technical difficulties.
They targeted Jews, gays, immigrants, and liberals.
We hope the knowledge brought forward today has helped you formulate your own opinions about the dangers of neo-Nazis, and we hope that it can help you to advocate against hate and help you understand its dangers.